A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book show brought to you by the Punch Up Entertainment Network. I'm your humble host, Mike Argoni, and joining me as always, the Lieutenant Nizon to my Captain Plick, it's John Campbell.
Oh man, all the favorites are in this issue. Everyone's most beloved characters from a galaxy far, far away appear in this. Oh wait, I've never heard of any of these people.
You've never heard of the famed rebel leader, Cody Sunchild, John?
Well, all I know is he was active around the time that Lando was a child, and the whole universe knew him. So sometimes you open this comic, and you just don't know what you're gonna get, right? Most of the time we talk about it as treading water to get to the next Star Wars movie, and then sometimes somebody takes a swing at doing something that is so far off the mark, but also wildly fascinating. And that is what I would say. This is not anything to do with any Star Wars I know of, but my God, what an intriguing read.
John, I would like to begin this conversation about issue number 46 of the 1977 Marvel Star Wars, released on April of 1981. By asking you a simple question, I think speaks to your personal interests in a way that will frame this conversation.
Sure.
What is the better movie? Citizen Kane or Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando?
Well, there's a good question.
So one is indicative of the art form as a whole, and the other is something churned out over several weeks to turn a profit.
I'll tell you which one I've seen more, and it's probably what you think it is. Yes, of course. What do you mean by better, of course, is always the...
I guess this comic is a product of the design by which monthly books are released in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
It is A, a fill-in issue. B, it is absolutely buck wild.
I mean, truly insane. This is the first one where I'm like, you know what? You really should go read it. Like, people, just out of like, you need to know this exists.
But I think it's not a book that is like redefining the genre. It is not It is not some kind of like stalwart, a phrase we've used for ages at this point, of the medium. But it is indicative of a certain milieu that exists in comic books that people are nostalgia for. Like Bronze Age schlock is firmly where I place this issue.
Well, and not just like trippy schlock, right? Like weird, particularly Marvel. Right, like late 70s, or just kind of that sort of era of Marvel. When you're talking about like Doctor Strange stuff and things like that, where it's like everything, or a lot of the popularity is Silver Surfer, which is interesting because the guy who wrote this wrote a lot of Silver Surfer.
Eventually,
right? Because which makes sense, but it's that sort of thing where you're just going like, what? And the only reason I Blanchett or whatever is they're playing in somebody else's sandbox here. If this was an issue of Silver Surfer, whatever, man, we're game on. But when you put it in Star Wars, you're like, this doesn't jibe at all with the thing we know.
Well, and it stands in stark contrast to that issue we read just before we started covering Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah.
That was that weird,
that was the Michael Golden one.
That was a like
it's like a
kind of like a
goo ship, right?
It was the goo ship with like the weird dead navigator who dreams of a inevitable return to his galaxy but can never return because everyone's dead.
Yeah.
It read like a fucking Judge Dredd backup story. This book is of a similar tone to that in terms of just like, okay, there's a story happening here, and some Star Wars characters just happen to be sprinkled into it.
Star Wars characters,
Do not.
yes, found their way into a 2000 AD or British sci-fi anthology comic.
Yeah. So yes, we're talking about issue number 46 of this book. Let's go over the creative team real quick, because that like starts off our questions about this issue. Because we've got Carmine Infantino back on pencils, and I've got more to say about Infantino in this issue, actually.
Yes.
We've got Tom Palmer on inks, Glennis Oliver Nayween on colors, and Diana Albers on letters. We've got a couple of editors in L. Jones and Dan F., which eventually we would know is
Louise
a certain Louise Simonson and Dan Fingeroth.
Yeah.
With Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief.
Yeah, but he's already crafting Secret Wars, so he's too busy.
Yeah. Now, you'll notice that I did not mention the writer of this issue, because our good friend Archie Goodwin is nowhere to be seen here.
Hey, man, even the best need to take a week off,
Sure, and I'm sure he's working on other books as well.
Oh, I have no doubt.
In issue, the credited writer here is a man, presumably a myth, even an idea, named Wally Lumbago.
Yeah.
Now, Wally Lumbago doesn't exist.
We found this out. This is a rare episode, folks, where we did more research than just reading the comic.
Because I saw that name and I said, Wally Lumbago. Why does that name not sound familiar at all?
I feel like we may not be like encyclopedias or whatever, but we have a pretty good frame of reference for like who was working at Marvel over the years.
Yeah. And like usually names, even if I haven't read all of their stuff, will at least spark like, oh, I vaguely know this person from these runs of She-Hulk or Doctor Strange or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Digging into it a little bit, we're reading these comics digitally on Marvel Unlimited. Yeah. The credited writer on Marvel Unlimited is J.M. DeMatteis.
A name we
famed Marvel writer.
Yeah.
We talked about Doctor Strange and Silver Surfer earlier. This guy has written issues of both.
And can we just say famously created one Ben Reilly?
To his eternal shame and or credit.
Oh, not shame, sir. He's still writing Ben Reilly to this day. Because if you didn't know, folks, there's a Ben Reilly comic going right now, and he is writing 100%.
Look, I think one of the smartest Marvel ploys for a crossover event recently has been the weird Ben Reilly, Madeline Pryor evil person team up of just like, oh, scorned clone team up? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he might have had a hand in that.
So why is the name Wally Lumbago on this comic? Well, that is because J.M. DeMatteis did not want to be credited with writing this book.
And you would think not for the reasons that we were alluding to earlier.
It's not because this is a bug nut story that barely involves Star Wars. It's because the people at Lucasfilm didn't like what he had to say.
And in their defense, agreed. Like well, if you're just not that what he wrote is bad, but that in terms of like brand, this would never even get off the concept table now. When Star Wars is just a controlled IP, right? You would never get anything this off the mark in a Star Wars comic today. So, but like I do, if I'm Lucasfilm and I'm just being sent a comic for approval, going, does this match up with the franchise you own? I would also be like, no, not at all.
Which is saying something, considering the amount of stuff we've read up to this point, which apparently had Lucasfilm approval, and up to this point, we've just sort of been assuming that somewhere George Lucas is going, yeah, it's fine, whatever, it's a comic book.
That's it exactly. That the biggest shock when we were looking at the background of this before we started recording was that they were approving any of this. I just assumed they were just like, who cares? Yeah, exactly, it's a comic book. We don't give a shit, because the other stuff they've let fly. I don't know that this is the aforementioned Michael Golden issue was pretty insane too. Yeah.
Okay, so just to put cards on the table, where we're getting a lot of this information from is from J.M. DeMatteis himself, specifically his blog Creation Point. Still running to this day. Go check it out. Very insightful
I
writer,
mean, the
and
guy
he's
is
got tons of interesting stories.
Living comics history, no question.
Yeah. But this post from September 24th, 2010, called The Dreams of Wally Lumbago,
Yeah.
in which he describes this issue and his conflicts with Lucasfilm and Marvel editorial at the time. Conflicts is maybe the wrong word. Friction.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it as we get into the issue, but there is a lot to talk about with this because the story is insane and it's very clear like where the editorial decisions were made, specifically on the last page.
Yes. I just want to look. I'm just looking to see. Okay, yeah, this is literally the only Star Wars thing he's ever written.
Yeah, I've already got the cover up because I think it like illustrates how insane this is right off the bat.
I think I mentioned this last week that I just, sometimes when I finish the issue on the app here and I just scroll to the next thing, it'll put up the cover for the next issue. And I'm pretty sure you can go back into last week's episode and watch me go, what? Because, right off the bat, well, this doesn't look like Star Wars at all.
So, two things about this. One, giant space genie crushing a Star Destroyer.
I would say that's the elephant in the room.
Second thing, it is, this is nothing new in comic books, a cover that promises something that isn't in the issue. Look, the giant space genie crushing a Star Destroyer is in the issue, don't get me wrong, but what it is based on the text on this cover is incorrect.
Yes, that is correct, because I was going to say, this is actually a rare one where I'm like, oh shit, if this imagery doesn't actually happen in the comic. But yes, as it says here, a living nightmare stalks the universe. Empire and rebel forces alike, helpless prey of the Dreadnought Devourer. And that sounds cool, but that's not at all what this issue's about.
Not even a little bit. And this is a cover by, let's see, Hannigan, I think is the name I see in the bottom left corner there.
Yes, it does look like it's Hannigan.
But clearly this was drawn after the fact to be like, okay, we can't sell what this issue actually is about.
This is true. Ed Hannigan, by the way, is the artist.
Yes.
Thank you. I think this is Wikipedia I'm on. Thanks to Ed Hannigan, who was known for Defenders at this point. He was the artist of Defenders.
So, yes, for our pure listeners, we have this giant pink Jin-looking creature that is swirling up from a planet. It's got the bridge of the Star Destroyer in one hand and the nose of it in the other, and is crushing it as the Millennium Falcon flies.
Which I will say, it doesn't quite do that. Also, it's more Jin-like in the cover than it is in the comic itself. But
yes.
in broad strokes, this imagery does occur in the comic.
Yeah, it looks like Jafar from the end of Aladdin.
Which, dude, there's the crossover I need.
But okay, right off the bat,
Yeah.
in basic concept, something big enough to crush a Star Destroyer with its bare hands, that's a cool idea, concept, image.
And once again, very Marvel.
And very Marvel, not something you would ever see in Star Wars. In Star Wars, there are like huge interstellar beasts that can threaten spaceships just by their sheer size.
But
we saw that in Ahsoka, we saw that in Solo.
Yeah, but they're not humanoid necessarily.
No, they don't look like something that might have to fight Adam Warlock, and we'll get into more direct Adam Warlock comparisons as this.
Adam Warlock, Silver Surfer. Adam Warlock is another good. All the Marvel Cosmic has a very specific type of imagery.
Yeah,
and this is it.
Let's get into the first page here. So we get our opening credits.
Yeah.
As we are introduced to this issue called The Dreams of Cody Sunchild.
I will say, automatically, you're like, where is this going? Because I'll just say, looking at this cover and then opening it up, and it's called The Dreams of Cody Sunchild. I'm like, oh, I don't know what kind of late 70s indie hippie film that I'm about to watch. The Dreams of Cody Sunchild. All right.
So, for those who do not know, and why would you? Because this is a weird esoteric piece of information.
Yeah.
J.M. DeMatteis' first son is named Cody. Born in early 1981.
So like
Just
right
straight
when
up
that
named,
happened. Yeah.
just straight up named this character after his kid.
Okay.
So it's like right on its face, the character of Cody Sunchild is J.M. DeMatteis' child.
That's fine. I have no issue with the name.
I do, because it's wild.
Well, Sunchild is the part that gets me.
It's the double N with the child with the E at the end.
Yeah.
It's just like, look, why not just Sunchild?
Yeah.
Like, why we got to get
No.
fruffy about this? Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I mean. That speaks to sort of a like hippie-y sort of like ethereal Cody Sunchild, man.
So, right off the bat, we have the Millennium Falcon cruising through hyperspace.
Yep.
The fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy.
Yep. As it says here, it's been called that, and that may be a hyperbolic statement. I will say there is hyperbolic isn't that, but there's a lot of thesaurus-y words in here that I felt were unnecessary.
Look,
That definitely it should have been my first tip-off. This wasn't Archie Goodwin writing.
based on the timeline of events here, DeMatteis has just started working at Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, has only written a couple of fill-in issues here and there for, like, Iron Man, I want to say.
Okay.
So he is trying to stretch his writer legs and be like, I can be Claremont too.
Yeah, well, and that is all, we've mentioned this before, but I think that is really key to everything at this time. Is like at this time, Claremont is God in comics, right? Like he's the guy who everybody's like he's doing stuff we couldn't even imagine years ago, right? So everybody
I would say
is
him and like Wolfman.
Him, well, because that was the thing, right? Was you had X-Men at Marvel and then New Teen Titans over at DC, and those were the two that were like, wow, they're really taking, comic books into a whole new. It's just like this is like really strong quality writing, and then you also have Frank Miller at this time, but he's doing his own thing, man. But yes,
I feel like
you're seeing a lot of Claremont clones at this time. Everybody
feel like
could be that guy.
Alan Moore and Frank Miller are establishing themselves at this point, but I don't think really get the respect they deserve until the late 80s.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, because this is we talked about like he did that cover Miller on Star Wars that we loved of Vader and Luke fighting, and he had just taken over Daredevil when he did that. So yeah, we're still they're really the young guys at this point who will, yes, of course, as we know, come to completely change the game with Neil Gaiman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, getting into it, we find ourselves with Chewie and Lando. Hey, we love those guys.
love them. Very excited that Lando's back, of course.
Right off the bat, I gotta say, Infantino, I think, is doing a great job here.
I agreed. This is one I actually did have to look. I'm going, is this still him? Because I gotta say, the likeness on Billy D, pretty great, and Chewie pretty much looks like Chewie.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, when I started in on this issue, I had no idea what it was in for, but first impression was, hey, Infantino's stepping up his game. He's actually going for likenesses. Holy crap.
I can't believe it.
Strap in, because it's a nosedive from here on out.
It sure is, man.
So, Chewie and Lando are coming out of hyperspace suddenly, unexpectedly. Their hyperdrive is kaput, as always happens with the Millennium Falcon. And they find themselves in a weird kaleidoscopic space that neither of them recognize.
Yeah, and that should be pretty quickly. You're like, okay, where is this going? Also, this once again, I don't know if to put this on. I'm going to put it on DeMatteis because once again, it just has to be. All the weird mentions of like heaven and perdition, and you're going like, yeah, that's not Star Wars talk though. I mean, maybe heaven in the same way about the I'll see you in hell thing in Empire, like the concept of heaven and hell broadly. Perdition was the one that got me.
Yeah. But yes, Lando does mention beautiful it is, like heaven opening wide and welcome, although I don't know of any heaven that would readily admit a pair like us. I love that line.
Couple of scoundrels, am I right, Chewie? Do also love this blue with the red accented like cape. He's looking good, man. Our boy's looking
Lando's
good. Yeah. But yeah, all of a sudden, But then, yeah, then it's just turn the page and we're in a laser light show.
Look, we're gonna hard dive into some pop space fantasy bullshit here, and this is the start.
Can I say this will not shock you? I was looking at J.M. DeMatteis's Wikipedia page. Before he was a comic book writer, he was a music critic for Rolling Stone.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I like that they specifically say, after giving a negative review to Grateful Dead's 1980 album, Go to Heaven, he stopped. He had like a specific review that was his nadir in the,
Look,
he gave a middle finger to the Grateful Dead and he's like, I'm out.
It's peace, love, and Jerry, man. If you can't get on board with those three things, get out.
I'm going to go over to Marvel, man.
So they're flying through these just like beams of light and explosions of color. Infantino, as opposed to like, I don't know, like a Steranko or like obviously Jack Kirby being the king of this, drawing like weird space stuff.
Ditko,
obviously. Infantino's, I don't know. His strength isn't in abstract.
No. We've talked about this. Infantino is such a key figure of Silver Age comics. When I think of Infantino, it is like the most superhero-y of superhero comics, right? It is like he was the Flash guy and stuff like that, right? So yeah, you don't think of that as being like, let's get trippy, man. And here, this whole idea of there's a floating city, man, surrounded by crazy colors. And what you get with that is a very literal idea of there is a city that's appeared to have been ripped out of a planet and is now surrounded by just beams of light.
And so what isn't really established here is, so it looks like it's just like a city in a dome on an asteroid. But later we learn that asteroid is actually covered in a jungle as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's supposed to be a jungle, but then the coloring kind of got messed up and it all looks brown.
Yes. And yeah, I just love this idea too, where he's like, hey man, if there's one thing we know Lando Calrissian likes, it's floating cities, baby.
Yeah. Because Lando even has a line here that feels very out of character and very just like Flash Gordon-y, when Lando says, a city. Could this be some kind of elaborate trap constructed by Vader and the Black Hearts of the Empire?
He would never say Black Hearts of the Empire. Lando is such a like he would never get that grand about it, right? He would just be like, "Oh, those old scumbags." I mean, it is Han, you old pirate, right? It is that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. Where he'd just be like, I mean, he wouldn't say this because it's Star Wars, but like, those bastards at the Empire, right? Like, he would just be like that. Yeah, he wouldn't be the black hearts that beat within the evil that is,
So really, what we're establishing here is that the Falcon is crash landing, and we're not in any space that either of these characters recognize. So, like, there's no star field in the background here. There's no generic space orbs. This is a totally different universe.
It's interesting because we'll get into this, and when you talk about it connecting back to the Michael Golden issue as well, is the idea of like other dimensions in Star Wars. Eventually does become, you have like the space between spaces and stuff, right?
World Between Worlds, yeah.
World Between Worlds, sorry, space between spaces. I'm sorry, that's Indiana Jones. That's other George Lucas nonsense.
Yes.
Yeah, the World Between Worlds. You get into that kind of stuff, which is still very different than this. But just like at this point in Star Wars, like other dimensions aren't really in the language of this franchise.
But they're in the language of science fiction in general. And like we've said,
that's
a lot of the writers on this book are trying to capture the milieu that is Star Wars by glomming on to one of the influences and steamrolling in that direction.
That is what's so fascinating about this Star Wars is, yes, they have what little they know of it. So, yes, they are putting in things from Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers or other, and especially at this time, we talked about that Al Williamson also did the art for the Flash Gordon the Flash Gordon movie adaptation. So you have just in the air right now, we're post Star Wars, there's lots of new sci-fi being made in general, and a lot of it is considerably trippier. 2001: A Space Odyssey is another thing that we can't also
I was going to say, this is
overstate
some
the
Arthur C.
influence of.
Clarke.
Right, and of course, as I still continue my chant to get that comic reprinted, the Jack Kirby 2001 comic that came out from Marvel as well. So, and like we're talking about, there's a lot of trippy sci-fi at Marvel. So yes, it is really weird to see Star Wars not yet totally have its own identity enough that it's not just glommed in with other science fiction.
Right. Yeah. But this is a glom of science fiction.
It sure is. And like I said, yeah, anytime they start talking about like, we're not even in our own dimension, you just go like, that's weird. It's just weird. I can't. You can intellectually like contextualize it, right? But you still am going like, yes, but I'm a reader now, having knowing the language of Star Wars extremely well, and it reads weird.
Speaking of reading weird, when Chewbacca at the bottom of this page says Groot.
Yep. I was like, oh man, you're not that character, buddy.
Tall and brown he may be, but made of wood he is not.
Although I do like very in Lando's voices. What are you talking about? I thought it was a perfect landing. Great.
As in the panel above, we see it just like skidding across the ground.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure. So they crash into obviously not the Orb City part, right?
Right. They're in the jungle on the exterior. Like I said, the art that we see on there, I think it's a coloring issue.
Yeah.
The outside of the dome is supposed to be a jungle.
Because I can see where he's drawn like trees, but it's all brown. Just the talk about what a gutter's doing right here in this, the ship flying at it and then suddenly skirting across the jungle ground. The visual language of it is not great.
Well, especially because in the like second to top panel, it looks like the Falcon is kind of flying above it.
Yeah. And away from it. It's like veering this way. It doesn't. Yeah. Anyway.
So next page we get.
It's some very Infantino shit now.
Oh man, from here on out, it's just like Infantino shit up and down in terms of the alien designs we see.
You can't get enough, man.
He's gonna have jowls. He's gonna have tusks. He's gonna have a horn nose.
You hire Infantino, there will be horn noses, pal. But yeah, this like, look at these creatures skittering around here. These are Infantino all day, man.
I love his little beasties, not gonna lie. I like the weird bird thing in the top of the panel here. I think
these are better than when he puts it on like humanoid ones.
Yeah. Because seeing that thing's head with 2 arms, 2 legs, and 5 fingers is. Yeah.
But it has this sort of like, weird bird-like thing. Yeah, kind of cool. And the little like skimpering lizards with the long necks. Yeah, sure. That definitely adds to this alien side of it. And of course, immediately Lando's like, maybe I'll run for mayor. It's what I do, baby.
Yeah, they're hiking towards the city, and Lando's basically monologuing at Chewie, saying like, hey, we got to get to that city. And who knows, maybe while we're there, depending on how gullible these people are, we can maybe make a buck or two.
Which I like the idea of like, so this is how Cloud City happened too, right? Like, just like, y'all need a leader?
Chewie having none of it is just like, hey, man, we're here to find Han. Come on.
Which I do like. And also, something I would like more of, and this is, but like coming out of Empire, the idea that, because there's some one-off lines in the narration about new to the Rebel Alliance and stuff like that. But yeah, like, the comic makes it seem like they're pretty trusting of Lando right away, which is one of the things I do like in the current Star Wars comic that's set between Empire and Jedi, that there is a lot of like Lando has to prove himself to these people because like he saves them at the last minute in Empire, basically.
Yeah.
So
only because the Empire has like fleeced him.
Right, exactly. Yeah, had Vader not kind of fucked him over, would Lando have joined the Rebel Alliance?
I doubt it.
I don't think so. He was really caring about me and mine at that point, right? Like,
yeah.
So that's an interesting note. But I just like that. This is the only like tension between Chewie and Lando, who you would think it would take a lot for Chewie to warm up to this guy.
Well, and they have a previous relationship, as we established, kind of in the movies, and then later in like Solo and stuff. Is that Chewie and Lando have like butted heads in the past, and their relationship, while contentious in this moment, does go way farther back than say Lando and Leia.
Right. So I mean, it's just interesting. But yes, he's like, hey, I'm just kidding, man. We all know I'm here to save Han Solo. Don't you worry.
I'd never forget that.
That's good. Once again, for the most part, I would say Lando's voice is pretty on.
It's pretty good. But this is like the Star Wars plot that we get in this issue, because from here on out, it's just going to go absolutely.
Literally, we turn the page and blood-soaked teeth of a demon are attacking them.
It happens quickly. The silent leap of a blood-eyed beast and the plangent shriek of a claw-raked Wookiee.
Plangent?
Yeah. That's a $10 word right there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is just like the thing about this is just like, sure, man, you can know a lot of words, but like, is that really the best for storytelling, man? Kids, keep your dictionary handy when you read the new issue of Star Wars.
Okay, so this might be like the type of nerd I am, but I absolutely did read books as a kid with a dictionary next to me.
Yeah, that is the kind of nerd you were. I would just go, I don't understand that word, and move on.
For those who don't know, plangent means it is a descriptor, an adjective of a sound, meaning loud, reverberating, and often melancholy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like I would say I have a pretty good I don't think I'm not sure I've ever heard the word plangent before this, but like I have a pretty good ability to get the context of a word. I'm like, got it, okay.
Sure.
The plangent, just that sentence, the plangent shriek of a claw-raked Wookiee. You're telling me that was the most effective way to say that?
It's so much easier to read than it is to say out loud.
It really is. I mean, which I guess is in the true sense of George Lucas writing. I guess that is true. As Harrison Ford always said, you can write this shit, but you can't say it.
Okay, so this thing that's leaping at Chewie is like a fucking... It's Panthro if he was a vampire. I don't know how to describe this guy.
It absolutely. I think that's pretty dead on, actually. Yeah, it's Panthro vampire. Absolutely, Panthracula.
It's this big purple dude with like hairy, like I don't know, like monster legs, but like a bare chest and like long arms with claws, and he's got kind of bat ears with big red eyes and these huge walrus tusks coming out of his mouth. Very Infantino.
Very comic booky. Not something you'd ever see in a Star Wars movie. Very comic book, classic comic book monster.
And now that Infantino's drawings of our two main characters are a lot more detailed and a lot more recognizable, it honestly makes the monsters stick out like sore thumbs now.
100%. Yeah, we're very familiar we're so familiar with Infantino at this point. We know this guy's moves. Can I say though, I love this last panel where it's I don't actually know what it's doing. The motion appears that it's clawing, but Lando's reaction is like he's been socked in the jaw.
I think he just got bitch slapped.
Well, we'll see later. He's about to backhand. This monster on the next page is about to backhand somebody. But I love the inset of Chewie going, "Oh boy."
I picked a bad day to stop sniffing glue.
It does. Yeah, he has a real Lloyd Bridges energy there. But I just can't imagine a Chewie like.
Well, and that like gives you an idea of this thing's savagery and power.
Yeah.
If even Chewie is kind of like put on his back heel and
because when we turn the next page, he finishes hitting Lando, then appears to just two-hand grab Chewie's head and bash it into the ground. Good lord,
God, this thing's face is so doofy.
It's so but he's got nothing on one Sunchild later. But then it's the third panel in here, the first in the middle row there, where he's about to backhand Chewbacca. That I am like, okay.
Yeah, he's making a lot of moves that like would be recognizable in an Iron Fist comic, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right.
Let me preface. An Iron Fist comic of this point in time.
Yeah. Like Claremont Iron Fist, yeah.
Where like they didn't actually know what kung fu moves he was doing. His hands would always just be in a straight line like a karate chop, and they would be sweeping through the air.
Yeah. I used to have a shirt with a cover, a '70s Iron Fist cover on it. That I don't think it didn't say Kung Fu Treachery, but it might as well have. Where it's just like, if you want to start in on this Kung Fu nonsense, I'm game. As he's doing like a split kick and kicking two guys, and you're just like, yeah, man, that was Marvel Kung Fu.
But what's this? In the center of this panel layout, there is a glowing hand that raises and zaps the monster in the butt.
Oh, my butt!
I mean,
look, there's no other way to read it. Accompanied by a whoosh. It needed. He just got spanked. He got psychically spanked. And then you want to talk about a doofy face. This could be the doofiest face I've ever seen in a comic book.
Okay, I was trying to like parse what this dude was, and like he's somewhere between Adam Warlock and Nien Nunb.
I
co-pilot.
I got serious Nien Nunb, which is so interesting because that's a character that's not in Star Wars yet.
No, yeah, he's the Sullustan that is Lando's co-pilot in the Falcon during the second Death Star run.
Yeah, and like from that forward, weirdly a character who's in a lot of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, he's all over Rogue Squadron and like a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Absolutely.
He's on the fucking Disneyland ride.
Yeah, sure.
He's like a big part of the Rise of the Resistance ride at Disneyland. I think because he makes an easy animatronic, but
he's a fun character to look at. He doesn't speak English, so you don't have to pay a voice actor.
That's always good. Disney's like, sold.
But okay, now we're strap in for like 3 pages of monologues from this fucking dude. Because right off the bat, we just have him explaining endlessly as he starts in with, "Enough. My monster brother's violence must have expression, but I will not allow the taking of a single life here in my realm." And then he just goes on and on and on, saying he is... why do you like he is describing the actions we should be seeing from Lando and Chewie. Instead, we just get a full shot of this guy in a like black leotard with yellow spandex pants and a red belt and a huge yellow cloak.
Yeah, I mean, he is the second he showed up, his whole outfit screams Bronze Age Marvel Comics, right?
I mean, the Adam Warlock comparison is the one I keep going to because it looks so like cosmic superhero. If you look up the original, like what Drax the Destroyer originally looked like,
I was going to say even a little bit Gladiator from the X-Men.
Gladiator of the Shi'ar Royal Guard.
Yeah, all these guys that sort of have this like tight spandex and big capes. That was like what base hero guys look like.
I mean, it's all a play on Superman, right?
Oh, totally, yeah. Or even going back to like OG Shazam Captain Marvel.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we are introduced to this guy who Lando will recognize as Cody Sunchild.
Yep. And the second that, I mean, well, obviously they knew they were going to say that, but it is like, Jesus. Yeah. I don't even, I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah. Cody he doesn't even introduce himself.
No, Lando knows him.
That he will absorb the monster that attacked them back into him, already raising some like, okay, what the fuck is going on here questions.
I know. At every turn, every new thing that happens in this issue is like, okay, I thought it was at its weirdest and it's something else. You're like, wait, what?
Because Lando says, "You misunderstand. I hesitated because there was something familiar about you. And now I remember, I saw you in action against the Imperials when I was just a boy. You're Cody Sunchild."
Which I'm just like, okay, that's great that you recognize him, Lando, but also we're just going to ignore him absorbing this creature back into him? That'd be like, I don't care who you are. What the fuck just happened?
So here's the thing. This Lando and Chewie don't know the extent of weirdness that exists in the Star Wars universe.
Sure.
So to them, this is a Tuesday.
Yep. I guess
now, movie Lando and Chewie would be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. Well, also we can talk about, and this is of course a thing. Once again, they don't know, but it is like I saw you in action against the Imperials when I was just a boy. Now, how old is Lando, and how long have the
Ooh,
Yeah,
no, John. Do not start
yeah, I
asking
know.
questions about the Star Wars timeline
Yeah,
during this
yeah,
period.
yeah. All right, there it is. That's my one note, and I'm ready. That's what I'm saying. Moving on.
No, does not line up. I agree. But
Because it's just like, wait a minute, Lando was probably a teenager when the
when the
Empire
Clone
took
Wars
control.
happened,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Anywho,
they there will not be a clear definition of how much time the Empire was in control until decades later.
it really is the prequels, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can
When
sort
you
of
get
work
like a firm
backwards.
idea, I should say.
If anything, the end of Empire sort of confirms certain things about the timeline if we work under the assumption that Vader is Luke's father, right? Like, as the moment that becomes fact indicates that within the span of a lifetime, the Empire has been around.
Yeah.
Because that Luke would have been born presumably pre-Empire.
Right. Well, because yes, that's the thing. Is like the end of the Clone Wars is the Empire take over. Well, no, I guess it becomes an empire when they give. Once again, what's your line of when it becomes the Empire? But technically, the emergency powers given to the Chancellor kind of begins the totalitarian rule, right?
Yes, but like you can kind of demarcate like, okay, when the Clone Wars ends is suddenly everyone's dressing in blacks and reds.
Yeah, it does. It happens very fast. They go from Clone Wars to full-on Imperial timeline. Boom! Right.
One of my favorite things about the show The Bad Batch, which just wrapped up actually, is watching the slow like transformation from like a show that starts right as the Clone Wars is ending,
Right.
to like maybe a year into the Empire's rule, and seeing the slow shift and like, okay, the Venator class ships are slowly making way to the Star Destroyers, and the Clone Trooper armor is slowly becoming
Something
the
I think
Stormtrooper
one of the
armor.
reasons why I think there is such praise for the Filoni produced animated stuff. It's not just that it is of a high quality in the writing and stuff like that, but it is really filling in a lot of gaps, and you do suddenly. I think one of the things in general that the shows have given us, and also the live action ones, is just a more concrete feeling of like, okay, there was like a time when it moved from this to this. It doesn't just happen, you know. Anyway,
Speaking of things just happening, though, yeah,
Cody Sunchild.
Cody Sunshine was happening, man.
He was a happening dude.
Cody Sunchild continues to monologue at them as he says, "The much lionized hero of the rebel cause? That is my name, sir, but nomenclature is the only thing linking me to the man of violence you recall.
Except for this
Keep
violence.
that in mind."
Except for this violence I'm currently doing to you, Lando, as I snap your wrist.
Why is he grabbing Lando's wrist? Lando wasn't...
And also, what is he doing to it? There's like an emanating aura from it, and Lando's like, I will drain the life from you, fucker, if you ever tell me I did violence.
But enough talk of the past. Yeah. Enough wasting of precious moments. These jungles are haunted by many more of my monster brothers.
Anyway.
Let us leave them and the past behind us as we enter the city.
Yeah, come with me to the land of Oz. Jesus Christ. Look at that thing. Yeah, it's so goofy at this point. And who are these people now?
These are just his followers. It's a strange assemblage, John. It says right there on the page.
Well, yeah. What I love is the strange assemblage happens in one panel, where all of a sudden that first close of him, there's just a bunch of people kind of behind him.
Yeah, they were there the whole time.
Sure. Well, here we go. Oh man, this is some real 70s. This is like Logan's Run shit, man.
Yeah. So we enter the city, the city of dreams. We will know it to be called.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Never in his life has Chewbacca seen such beauty, never such symmetry, such finely sculpted perfection. He cranes his hairy neck to gaze up at the golden balloons that drift lazily overhead, and lets fly an unbidden growl of delight as a soft, surreal music wafts down from the great cathedral like building ahead.
So begins one of my biggest problems with this, just how much Chewbacca buys into this hippie nonsense.
Chewbacca at this point is such a blank slate, right?
Except or his allegiance to one Han Solo. And so when he is when I understand the storytelling reversal, but the idea that he could ever be enchanted enough to give up the pursuit of his best friend that he owes a life debt to, that is, I don't know if we know he owes a life debt to him at this point. I can't remember where that comes in. But it doesn't matter. The one thing you do know is he's got that guy's back. His howl when they closed the doors at the beginning of Empire to leave on. Like, that's his boy, man. And it starts this issue where Lando even indicates he might be abandoning the mission, and Chewie's like, I don't think so. And then so suddenly by the end of it, him going like, maybe we'll just stay here, and like, bang, maybe we'll get into whatever that relationship with the other Wookiee is.
So, this is where Sunchild begins to explain what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Because when Lando asks where they are,
and this is
Sunchild is saying, we're in another dimension. Okay.
I was going to say, this is a great example of the more answers you get, the weirder it is. Right? As he starts to explain what's going on, you're going like, oh, it's even stranger than I thought.
He says, when your warp engine exploded, it must have somehow pierced the wall between and brought you here.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess that's a perfectly Star Trek explanation for how they got here.
I actually was going to say, this whole issue feels a little bit more Star Trek-y. Weird planet of space, hippies, other dimensions. It's a lot more Roddenberry sci-fi.
Oh, I mean, look, how many episodes of Star Trek are there where the away team ends up in a seemingly ideal, peaceful civilization with some kind of god ruler?
And even down the stretch of this, where it's this whole thing about, like, we don't choose violence, and if that's a whole thing, and it totally feels like Kirk going, what do you mean you're not fighting the Klingons? Like it's really interesting. I bet Dimitrius was a Star Trek fan, is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Golden Child continuing on, you may remain among us if you choose, and when you see it, when you see what it is we have here, I think you will choose. That's such a fucking weird sentence.
It's a very weird sentence, and two, also, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, oh boy, this guy's got an ego on him. When you find out what we're doing, you're definitely going to want to stay, and I'd be like, the hell I will, man.
I mean, Lando's saying what you're thinking when he says, I don't get it, Sunchild. What's your game?
Yeah, I mean, everything about this is like, we're a cult.
Well, especially when we get to the next page and the floating Buddha says, we play no games in the City of Dreams.
That would be you know what? I'm definitely out. Just go back, the way we came in? Yeah, great. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
And this guy has such a goofy name. He introduces himself as Ansible Beelyard.
It's so insane. I just can't. I mean, I love it for its context now, but like, trying to read this, imagining reading this when it came out, you'd just be like, wait, what? I just saw Empire Strikes Back and now this?
Okay, so to recap.
Yeah.
Lando and Chewie have crash landed on this weird planet in a different dimension. They've met the leader of this place, a guy named Cody Sunchild, who has led them to this big church where there's all these other people here, and they're like, this place is made of love and dreams and
all
peace.
About love,
we choose to be here.
Yeah.
There's definitely no way that we have let Cody Sunchild have access to all of our bank accounts so that he might better manage our lives.
I'm just saying, I would know what to do better than them, all right? They're irresponsible.
Yeah. But importantly, among this crowd of other people, there is a second Wookiee.
Oh, is there ever a second Wookiee? Which I like is just the same drawing of Chewbacca with slightly different coloring on the face.
Yeah, look, we can't ask Infantino to suddenly be drawing two separate Wookiees. That would be insane.
The sight of a fellow Wookiee makes his heart sing, and then what I can only read is, Chirrur. Hey, baby.
That is an amorous look on Chewbacca's face.
It sure is, and like I said, that is like a, hey, Chirrur, honey.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Buddha-looking guy is saying, look, you've come to a universe untainted by the darkness of the Empire.
Yeah. Which we'll come to learn is not true. They're just choosing to ignore it.
Right. Because Lando's starting to put this together a little bit. I keep wanting to say Han, because like Han and Chewie. But
right. Yes, Lando and Chewie.
Lando's starting to put this together because he recognizes the name Ansible Beelyard as the Holy Terror, the right-hand man to Sunchild.
I do love that Lando knows everything about these guys. Of course, I know everything about you and your history, plus related characters.
Well, it seems like these were like the G.I. Joes of the rebellion for at least a little while.
I had your trading cards. Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, look, you know the Wookiee's name is Furball. That droid in the background is Tin Can. You've got Stormwrecker and Gatecrash.
Yeah, wait, did Larry Hama come in here and write this issue? It's no job. How'd you get in here? But yeah, I just love that it's just like, oh, whoa, you don't even need to tell me. I know for sure who that is. Mm-hmm. What is going on here? Well,
meanwhile,
some very Marvel villain-looking Imperials are showing up.
I don't even really want to get into these guys' whole thing because it doesn't matter.
Captain Plick.
Captain Plick is a fucking extra from Battlestar Galactica, the 80s one.
Absolutely. And I actually went, as soon as they talk about somebody who's threatening Flash Gordon, this woman in this outfit, good Lord.
What makes the Empire evil is its like normalizing of bureaucratic, sinister nature, right?
Yeah, it's the banality of evil, the Nazi kind of stuff, right?
So when one of their characters dresses in like a big orange jumpsuit with puffy sleeves, you immediately go like, well, okay, you're not a part of this system then.
Hey man, they're on the outskirts. They make that clear. These are the people flying out on the fringe. So they're just like, you know what? She's just like, one day, you know what? I'm going to wear this. I designed my own outfit.
That idea of like the Imperial Starcruiser crew that is so far out on the fringes, they're just like keeping it lax and loose and trying to just keep under the radar. That's an interesting idea. But when all of these characters act like just generic Imperial baddies,
because you get that more with like the Moffs and stuff, right? When it's like the idea of like, I'm in charge of this planet, and so shit's gonna get kind of weird out on my thing. But yeah, I don't. What are they doing? They're just going around going, hey man, I think we found something.
They're flying around. They find something that looks to be a breach in the dimensional space.
I do love the idea.
Where that leads.
I love the idea of it's just like, we're in another dimension. The Empire won't bother us. What's that? The Empire's here? Oh, shit. We greatly overplayed our hand.
We cut back to the weird dream space, and we have just a whole freaking page of Sunchild monologuing.
Oh.
And I'm not going to read it all.
No.
To sum up.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's basically, he basically says this is literally a city of dreams, right? Everything is built from my own psychic energy.
Because I want to give this a quick count here. 1, 2, 3. We got 3 full pages here that is going to be Sunchild's backstory.
And I will say this was a slog. I'm sitting there going page to page going, oh my God, he's still talking.
To sum up what is occurring here, and I'll display the pages for our YouTube viewers so they can see the art and what we're talking about here, but I'm not going to read all this box text.
No, nor should you.
So on this first page, we get a little bit of backstory about Sunchild and his band of hooligans who fought the Empire in the early days of the rebellion, and he admits that like he wasn't in it for the cause, he was in it for the violence.
Yeah, this guy's
Cody Sunchild wanted to kill for killing's sake.
It's kind of a proto-Saw Gerrera a little bit.
Yeah, I saw that comparison a little bit.
The idea of like, this is the guy who before there was a formal rebel, rebellion, he was more terrorist.
Yeah, and again, this guy in particular is admitting like, I did it because I loved an excuse to be excessively violent.
Yeah, I just loved killing, man.
Here I go, killing again.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm gonna kill him. Oh my God, I'm gonna kill him. It's gonna happen.
On the next page, we find out that he was on some backwater world. He got shot by a laser. He fell down a crevasse, fell into a living fire, and it mixed with his own latent psychic powers and turned him into some kind of messiah.
This made me laugh so much because this is the ultimate, like, here are all the answers. You're like, the answers are so much more insane than you could. Yeah, man, I felt it was living fire and I had psychic abilities. And next thing, he's like, what are you talking about? And when I emerged, I was a full-on crazy wizard guy.
Yeah, when he comes out of the fire, he's got a beard and like a stick.
The living fire also made my beard follicles grow I don't know. It's a whole thing.
He also started getting worshipped by a bunch of Morlocks, but not in those Morlocks because this is still Marvel Comics.
Yeah, insane.
They're called musts. M''USTS.
Yeah, must. Yeah.
But they worshipped the living fire, and so when he emerged from it with all of this like psychic powers, they were like, "Oh, he must be a god too." And so,
what I love about this though is like none of this really has anything to do, at least the mystical stuff, with the point that Mateus is making. Like the whole point he wants to make is that here are people choosing to live away from the conflict, but the conflict is out there regardless, right? Like that kind of ends up being the thing. All of this is just gobbledygook. Like you could do a Star Wars story about people who were rebels engaging in this war who went, we had enough of the killing and we just want to live apart from it. Oh, but you can't.
One of the best episodes of the Clone Wars is about exactly this, about the clone who puts down his blaster and goes and starts a family.
Yep.
And another batch of clones like find him and are like, "What are you doing, man? You walked away from the fight." And he's just like, "I had enough of the fight. I don't want to be a part of it anymore."
No, there's so much, like I said, that's kind of what was frustrating about this issue to me, is like at the very end of this issue, which we'll get to, I'm going like, oh, there's like, I kind of see what you're trying to say with this issue. I don't think he lands it at all.
Well, and that is due to editorial mandate. The landing is aborted in this issue. And we'll talk about the reasons why.
But that being said, all this like psychic power shit is also just distractions from the broader point. I think it's overcomplicating what could be an actually really effective Star Wars story.
Yeah, on this third page, we've got some thigh-high boots that the Wizard Man is in.
Oh, well, you got to get those. Once you become Messiah to these people.
So, he goes on to say that when he emerged from living with the underground people, he had immense psychic powers. He came up onto the top side, witnessed the world still on fire because the war with the Empire is still going on.
Right.
So rather than use his immense psychic abilities to combat the Empire, because he knew he still had that like lust for violence inside of him, even though he thought he had put it aside, he had to remove himself from the equation so that he couldn't do terrible damage to the galaxy.
Right.
So he used his immense psychic powers to create this place out of his dreams.
Yeah.
And
he says this
then
all
he brought
like,
a bunch of his old soldier buddies here.
Yeah. And immediately Lando's like, that's fucking stupid.
And slaps him.
Smack, literally with the onomatopoeia. Smack. I'm gonna smack some sense into you, son.
I mean, Lando now does say, and that's it? You were given a gift of such incredible power and such magnitude, and you used it to build a fantasy land?
Yeah. Well, that is kind of I mean, I'm kind of with Lando on this, right? Where you go like, if this guy's like, I just want to get away from the war and the killing, man. And to Lando's point, I am sort of like, well, yeah, that's valid if one side wasn't literally evil incarnate.
What I struggle with is Lando saying all of this.
Well, and DeMatteis tries in his script, right, to be like, I kind of was like that. He tries to, but it doesn't work.
Chewie should be the one making this point, but Chewie can't make that point, right?
Well, this probably should be a Luke Skywalker story, right? Or a Leia. Luke or Leia would be better.
Leia, I think, would be better.
Yeah. And actually, Leia would actually make a lot more sense, because the idea of Leia maybe knowing people fighting the Empire from a very young age would fit.
And the idea that, like, okay, but my home was destroyed by this evil. Who are you to just sequester yourself away from that?
Because Lando's still on his first week as part of the Rebel Alliance. It's my third day as a rebel.
My sick time hasn't even kicked in yet.
I'm still filling out the whole insurance paperwork nonsense. God, what a headache, am I right?
But anyway, Lando smacks Cody.
Smacks him
And
good.
then Cody says, "No, don't hit me. You don't know what you're doing." When suddenly, boom, in bursts more of those panthro vampires.
Which I gotta say is another thing that maybe speaks to the less than idyllic world of this. Is basically like, yeah, it's a super peaceful place, but if I get kind of pissed off, fucking like bloodthirsty creatures come and start ripping people apart.
Because what we learn in this page is as Cody's son child, Immaculate Leader, defeats the panthro vampires, he says that those are a piece of his psyche that he has removed from himself.
Yes.
They're his violent urges that live out in the jungle.
That's the old me.
Yeah. And enacting violence here summons them.
Correct. To what end? This guy like, oh, I stubbed my toe. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Always I struggle to hold them beyond the gates, where they can vent their evil without harm. But they demand free reign, and each day I must draw more and more of their number back into me. So he makes it sound like this is unsustainable.
Exactly. It is like, yeah, man, it's super peaceful now, right until I lose control and these things murder everybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound that idyllic to me, man. Like I said, I like the very core of what this story is trying to do, but every detail of it is so weird and just like, what?
So yeah, Cody absorbs all these other things. Then we have this weird scene where Chewie seems to be buying into the whole idea of this place.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me, is where it's just like Chewie met another Wookiee and instantly forgets about everything he believes in. Which I do not like. Once again, I do not like any sort of character assassination of the great Chewbacca.
Yeah. So, you ready for DeMatteis's next $10 words?
I absolutely am. You talking about pusillanimous dreamers?
Yes.
Yeah. What?
So this one I had to look up too. So pusillanimous,
yeah,
another adjective.
Yeah.
Showing a lack of courage or determination.
Yeah, well, I mean, it fits. But it's another thing where it's like, really? How about just cowardly?
No, John, pusillanimous. A word that Lando would absolutely
Well, that's
use.
what I say. On 2 points, not only is this clearly the writer showing off, it's also way out of voice for the character.
Yeah.
Jesus. Ay.
Yeah. So, but Chewie
Somebody
shrugs him
went to
off.
college,
Drops Lando away, throwing him into the arms of this 3PO knockoff.
I do like where he's just like, I don't know, man. I guess all droids look like this.
But because the 3PO knockoff says...
For a split second, I had to go, wait, was 3PO with them? No, okay.
It's a golden protocol droid that looks basically the same.
Yeah, they're all over the place, apparently.
But he says to Lando, I think what he's trying to say, sir, is that even Wookiees can dream.
And yeah, it is very looking at that, it's very hard not to read that in Anthony Daniels' voice, right?
I love Lando's reaction, though. It's just like, droid, shut up.
I just want the panel of droid, shut up. Droid, shut up. That hairy thug, that hairy thug, man.
Yeah.
And then he basically, this is because for a second I thought, oh, are we getting into mind control stuff? No, it's just like general cult brainwashing, right? When he's talking about it's like a plague.
Yeah, he's talking about how everyone's sort of been infected with Cody's dream, and it's hard to escape. It's very infectious.
But also, they've been there for what, 20 minutes, and Chewie's 100% on board.
I think they're trying to sell this idea that Chewie is so infatuated with seeing another of his kind, because that's something that really haven't established in Star Wars media quite yet, is just how bad the Wookiees have it under the reign of the Empire.
I don't know, man. I saw that holiday special, and that was out at this point. Seemed pretty bad, is all I know.
Oh, yeah, look. Yeah, but they're free enough to have their grandpa masturbating in their living room.
Yeah, what is this comic talking about? He has a wife and kid back home.
Yeah, those are established facts.
Mala
is aware of.
and Lumpy.
Lumpy and their grandpa Itchy.
Itchy, yeah, yeah, who's jerking off to Donna Summer.
That that's special. Uh,
That's
I I told my partner the other week, if I ever recommend that we watch the Star Wars holiday special, I have died and been replaced.
Yeah, I do. I think I have recommended on it before, but the documentary that came out last year about the holiday special is must watch. A Disturbance in the Force. I love that I can point people to that now, because that's the thing, is like, watch that. It's a very entertaining thing that gives you context and will show you all you need to see of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So, and here's where like some of the lie is in Cody Sunchild's like removal from the conflict belief, as he is like kind of exploding at Lando, as Lando's like, look, this is all bullshit, I'm out of here. And
Lando out.
Cody is like, curse you, Calrissian, who are you to judge me? Answer me, idiot.
Which I love, and then the Infantino drawing of him with the beast in his eyes,
He's literally replacing his pupils.
but also looking 100% like MODOK.
I was gonna say a Watu, but yeah.
Oh, Watu, yeah, either one though. But any big-headed Marvel character, that close-up, his face is so wide, it's taking up the whole thing.
It's the big eyes that do it for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, the eyes are definitely Watu. Now that's what I like to hear. A little human rage. Maybe there's hope for you yet.
Meanwhile, the Empire has figured out how to make it through the dimensional hole. The D-hole, as I call it.
Interface coordinates on screen, Captain.
This is some Star Trek nonsense.
Yeah, they're literally flying towards a swirling like energy void or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as he says, as planned, we will channel all hyperdrive antimatter pods directly into the frontal laser banks.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Transfer power to the auxiliary, whatever. Yeah, it's very...
Yeah. Can
Eject
we recalibrate
core.
the shields
Yeah.
to project a...
Yeah. If you just eject the core, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's always the way. But it looks like the Empire's on its way through the dimensional barrier. Meanwhile, later, beneath the shifting dimensional skies...
This one really asks me how much time has passed, because they're like, well, gee, thanks for getting the Falcon out of trouble and repairing it. How long have they been there?
I mean, he has immense psychic power. This could have taken 5 minutes.
No, that's true. That is true. Because but of course he has to. This is the kind of writing I hate, where people go, I don't get it. You have just done this.
And Sunchild saying, I feel no loathing for you, Calrissian, only pity. I realize that there is little hope of purging the violence in your heart.
Yeah, Lando, the most violent motherfucker around.
I do like Lando coming back. Spare me your messianic mumbling, Sunchild.
Messianic mumblings does feel like a Lando line.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Enough with the sales pitch, all right? I don't care if it's tax deductible.
So we have this back and forth between Lando and Sunchild having a conversation, Empire's approaching. Lando and Sunchild having a conversation, Empire's approaching.
I think the design of this obviously is meant to be like, oh, all this guy's saying is for naught because violence is coming their way. But it also just feels like such clunky writing. Once again, that's like, for we will always have peace. That's right. We will never be... What? Oh, they're here. Okay, yeah. It just feels like it's one of those things where it's such a dumb writing thing about like someone immediately proven wrong.
But that's the thing, like, even going into this issue, it's tough to grapple with Sunchild's point of view in terms of Star Wars, because you're immediately thrown into a black and white conflict right from the opening crawl of the first movie. The evil galactic empire.
That's what I was saying earlier. That's the problem with this, is the reason Star Trek does more of this stuff is there really isn't a lot of pure good and evil in Star Trek. That's almost like... Well,
the Cardassians kind of suck.
They do, but there are even characters like Garrick. It's always meant to be like broad strokes. There are, even like the way, look at like with Picard and stuff, how it eventually develops the Borg even. Like, well, actually, even the Borg have like a, it's always meant to be like the longer you look at something, there are, of course, actively evil characters and more evil races. But it's not a singular conflict, of course.
Sure.
And they do things in Deep Space Nine with the Cardassians. By the way, my mistake for bringing up Star Trek. But I'm saying that where it is like, even there are moments where you go like, oh man, I don't even know if I'm with the Bajorans now in their fight against the obviously imperialistic Cardassians. There's lots of Star Wars isn't built like that. It's not supposed to really be. It can be, and there are shades of it within things like Andor and stuff, which I like, or like the aforementioned. It's one of the reasons I love the character of Saw Gerrera, because you're like, oh man, even if you're like going against the bad guys, you're like going really fucking far. You know, I like stuff like that. But yeah, it is a thing where it's just like, this guy is trying to be like, oh man, the whole fight is pointless. It's like, actually it's not. It really is a battle for the soul of the galaxy. And like, it's very hard to paint the rebels wholly as being like, oh, just more violence.
Case in point, as soon as the Star Destroyers are through the dimensional breach, we have Captain Plick saying, slow to normal speed, we've either stumbled upon a secret rebel base or a pocket of civilization uncrushed by the Empire's heel. They must be made to fear us. Attack.
I didn't like this line because it also puts into motion, like, I don't necessarily like to think that everyone within the Empire is being like, we're about to do some bad, baby.
There are people within the Empire who recognize that what they're doing is reprehensible.
There are
people within any system that recognize that. Even within our own systems of government and control, there are people who recognize the fact that what they're doing is morally bad, but they believe that they're doing it for a greater good, and that lets them justify their actions a lot of the time.
Yes.
With the Empire specifically, and I think, weirdly enough, the show that like kind of exemplified that for me was in Obi-Wan. That scene where Obi-Wan and Leia are trekking through that like weird rural world, and they're picked up by JD from Sacred Heart Hospital.
We're like the only two people who heard that voice and were like, that's Zach Braff.
I mean,
instantly. Oh, I know who that is.
But there's a character who is like just a workaday, blue-collar dude who is doing his job and is in full support of the Empire because they bring order and stability to the place where he's at.
It goes back to the makes the trains run on time, right? It's the Mussolini thing. You know, it is that sort of thing where it's like, most people in the world of Star Wars just want to live their lives, and so they're just like, oh, the Empire's in charge? That's fine. I just got to go to work. Like, you know, I don't have any... And yeah, you see a stormtrooper, and you're just like, well, that guy's just running the checkpoint. You know, I don't have time to think about the ramifications of this. But the idea that these people are like, we're going to crush them under the boot of the Empire is a little bit like, I don't know, man. I would think it'd be like, or have yet to hear the good word about the Empire a little bit would be how I would prefer this to read, or something like that.
If you're going to crush somebody under your boot, you would assume a level of antagonism.
Right.
Not, these people have maybe never heard of us. Quick, crush them under a boot.
That's what I mean. Is it just, while there is the broad black and white of Star Wars and the conflict therein, Another thing I think that's been really good about the TV shows is like the characters of Andor, right? Like, or like Director Krennic. I love seeing the middle management of the Empire in more stuff. The people who are just like, I'm just trying to climb the corporate ladder, man. I'm not thinking about broad evil ramifications of this. I just want my boss to be happy about how I'm doing.
Yeah. No, and like, look, the closer you get to the Emperor in terms of like proximity, the closer you get to, well, I'm serving an evil space.
Well, yeah, because we've talked about this. Like, once you spend any real time with Palpatine, you're like, oh, okay, got it. The Emperor needs to be a concept for most people.
There's a character in the Bad Batch show who's an evil scientist who's running something called Project Necromancer. Right. And there's no way he's not a bad guy.
Yes, there are plenty of people like that. But the idea that, especially, this is just an Imperial crew out on the fringes patrolling, and you're telling me there's such, not even true believers, but like, we just want to fuck. And actually, even if that was the attitude, if it's like, we're just warmongers who want to fuck people up, that's different than let's crush them under the boot of the Empire.
And the reason we're harping on this so much is because
That's right.
Demetrius himself is undercutting his own point in this panel specifically by painting the Empire as so blatantly evil. Right. It makes the idea of somebody wanting to ignore the conflict happening with them patently ridiculous.
And the fact that he's going to nobly have these people die kind of pointlessly, I don't really grasp the point at the end of this.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it. So as we get onto it, what's this? The Empire's attacking, but Cody's just like, hey, that's not my truth. I'm going to stay here. We're going to be peaceful.
This is the exact moment when the book literally does what I was saying earlier, where he goes, I wonder how long your truth would hold up if the war you ran away from came knocking on your front. Oh, here it is. Perfect timing. Thanks, Empire. You know.
So as they're under attack, Chewbacca has this moment of just like, look, real world came a knocking. The dream was nice while it lasted. Gotta go.
Thanks for all the sex.
Look, sometimes Chewbacca has needs, and Lando isn't always around to satiate it.
And he's really just into people who look exactly like him. Just my type.
So Chewie and Lando are off in the Falcon to go face down these like 6 Star Destroyers.
Yep. There they go. And they even have a thing where it's like Cody Sunchild knows they'll be killed horribly.
It looks like you've no choice now. Either you do something or your beloved city dies.
Yeah. And he's just
on this next page we have
sweating.
So I thought this was like, this is a coloring error is what I think it is. Because, it's him sweating. But, like, I thought it was like, his, like, the pigmentation of his face is draining away.
That's what was this like Jack Nicholson Joker where he's put flesh-colored makeup over his white skin?
See, and I read it as, like, Marv Wolfman Tomb of Dracula, where Dracula gets the paler he gets.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But I do agree. I think it's just a coloring issue.
Yeah,
but it's cool to think it might have been like a expressive sort of
we cut back and forth between the Falcon like flying and dodging and zapping.
It's wazanging. Let's be honest, it's wazanging all over the place
and zawooming.
Yeah, all the stuff the Falcon normally does.
And we cut back and forth between that and Sunchild down the bottom, staring up at the sky, slowly losing his shit.
As the heavens above are seared by death rays, and death rays is such a Flash Gordon term, and all sound is smothered in the clang of battered hulls. Wouldn't that be battered hulls?
Don't worry about it. Okay. Moving on.
A dark and baleful horror, long repressed, swims up through the murky waters of Sunchild's psyche.
And so then we see a dark version of himself in his own Owatu eyes.
Yeah, interesting. And demands release. And boy, he's using such strong language. Curse you, stinking Empire scum, for infecting my dreams with your disease. I see now there is only one way to deal with your noxious kind.
Release the space genies.
And release them he does. And I am sorry, even if it's helping you, Lando's way too like, Yahoo! Chewie! By the way, stealing Han's Yahoo. But he's way too happy to see giant demons emanating from a planet. Like I said, even if they're on your side, you'd still be like, dear God!
And Lando just saying, Sunchild came through. He's sending his demons to give those rats what they deserve. Anyone...
There aren't demons just about in Star Wars where you'd be like, oh good, the demon army showed up.
I mean, it does raise the question of, like, what's a demon in Star Wars?
Well, no, yeah, it brings into that. And when we're going to talk about perdition in a second here, we're getting to, yeah. Because there's the dark side, and there are things within the dark side you might call demons, but they never do.
And, like, demons evokes a specific, like, not specific, but it is this idea of things from the underworld, right?
Right.
And
that's not really what we're dealing with in Star Wars. Is there really isn't like an underworld as much as there is the Force that's around us, and there is light and dark within it.
And there are things that can be brought back from those pools of the Force, right? Whether we're talking about Force ghosts or we're talking about like Night Sister zombies.
Right.
Those are like animated corpses, but same idea.
Yeah, it's good stuff though.
But this is like literally conjuring demons, like a wizard in D&D.
That's what. Yeah, this is an interesting thing because we always talk about Star Wars is more fantasy than it is straight sci-fi, but
there's a lot.
Yeah, but now it's literally just fantasy.
Yeah, if this guy's
raised
conjuring
level 4 demon.
Oh, John, this is at least a 9th level summon.
All right, I don't.
Lesser infernal.
All right, put me in my place. I don't know what I'm talking about, but yes, it is sort of like the idea that Lando could get out his D&D book and classify this thing. Hold on, Chewie, I'm looking it up.
All right. So, meanwhile, the Empire's like, "Holy shit, demons! We need to get out of here."
By the Emperor's robe, says Captain.
I love that.
By Zeus's beard. Right? I need Will Ferrell as an Imperial captain.
By Palpatine's knickers.
There you go. Yeah. Our fleet is helpless against those things.
So Chewbacca and Lando are like, "Hey, we're doing it." Meanwhile, back on the planet, Sunchild's like, "Oh no, what am I doing? Demons, come back, demons."
It's fascinating because they see these things, and Lando goes, "Look at that, they're turning around. He did it." And the idea that he's like, "What am I doing?" It's like, you scared him off. You could just stop right here, and shouldn't that be the end of it? But in fact, that he's like, "No, I've gone too far."
Yeah, Sunchild is trying to make a principled stand and sticking to his firm belief that he must not participate in the conflict.
Even though he didn't really do anything, he kind of just scared them away.
Yeah, so...
Are we going to get into what... Because there was, presumably, right, an alternate ending to this. The ending got changed, we've talked about. Are we getting to that yet?
We're almost there, because right here at the end, we have Sunchild basically saying... "My friends, long have I preached about shining examples. Today I learned that, unless tested by adversity, an example has no meaning. I must prove the dream of peace worth living by dying for it."
Fuck off, man. That is such bullshit.
And all of his followers are like, "Correct, sir. We're with you.
Let's die." And I do not like this because like I said, the thing is, once again, it's a problem in the writing. And no, he found the middle ground. He scared them with a show of force that didn't actually do anything.
So he has chosen, though, to remove himself from the conflict by surrendering to it.
Yeah, which is not.
And
I don't find a lot of, maybe that's just me personally. I don't find a lot of nobility in that.
Yeah, and look, DeMatteis is going for some kind of grand theme of there is evil on either sides of a conflict in which, like, both sides are using violence to accomplish their goals.
Correct.
And isn't there some kind of nobility in trying to remove yourself from it entirely?
Which, as a Vietnam War allegory, really works. You know, like, right, when you're talking about our world, hyper-complicated geopolitical conflict.
Yeah. In Star Wars, the fine folks at Lucasfilm said, no.
Because it's always been an interesting thing to me in Star Wars, right, that Lucas always talked about the original Star Wars as a Vietnam allegory, but it kind of doesn't work. Because
and you can...
It's buried in there because it really is, on top of it, is the sort of fairy tale space opera aspect of it, too.
Right, and like you can talk all the allegorical nonsense you want about the prequels and the Iraq War or the originals and the Vietnam War, but at the end of the day, those are allegories. They're themes and subtext.
Right.
They're not they're not surface level what those stories are.
No, once again, that's where you go over to Star Trek, where you're like 1-to-1. They're talking about the Cold War right now.
Yeah. Look, when you have an episode where Kirk literally reads the Declaration of Independence to the planet.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. Yeah. Yeah. Listen to me. Don't gather around. Everybody here. Yeah.
Doesn't he literally do that in an episode?
He sure does. I can't remember if it's the Declaration. I think it might be the Constitution, actually. But yeah, it's the same.
Either way.
The same idea that he is like, gather around, everyone. I'm going to stand in front of this American flag.
So the Imperials funnel all of their hyperdrive power into their weapons and blow up the city and kill Sunchild and everybody on it.
Yeah. And what this ends up doing is trapping the Empire there.
Right. So they use up their hyperdrive to level the city, kill everyone there. Lando and Chewie are still in the Falcon flying around. They realize that the Imperials are trapped there and they could easily destroy them.
Yeah.
But Lando at the last minute, it's like, no, we're not going to use violence. We need to get out of here.
Except for, once again, this is another thing that's like, it isn't noble. They're just going to die out there still. This whole idea about this is non-violent isn't. It isn't, though.
So this last page is not DeMatteis's work, based on the information we have from his blog.
Okay, this is what I'm curious about, because you alluded to this before we started recording.
Yes.
Okay.
This whole last page is Louise Simonson trying to right the ship after Lucasfilm said, no.
I think it's amazing this came out, honestly. I think it's amazing that they didn't just shelve this issue entirely.
John, there's a deadline. You got to.
Well, I think that's what saves it. Honestly, is just we're just working so fast.
So, from what I was able to glean, because again, this is all DeMatteis saying this himself.
Right.
So take it with a big grain of salt.
Yes, this is his perspective,
his
memory of what happened.
But I'll bring up to what DeMatteis said specifically about this, and. He says, Louise had no choice. This was a high-profile license, and Marvel had to keep the Lucas people happy. New dialogue was written for the last page, not by me, and I'll never forget these lines were added. He created a dream city where he could live in peace, Calrissian said. But he was wrong. Lofty ideals alone just aren't enough when dealing with the Empire, as he find out. No maybes about it. Cody Sunchild was an idiot who sacrificed his life for nothing. In parentheses, there was other lines added about letting the Empire's ships, which had been damaged, rot in other dimensional space. This, we are led to believe, would have made Sunchild happy. A moment where I bang my head against the wall for old time's sake. To me, the Lucas people were the ones who were wrong. So wrong, in fact, that I took my name off the story, replacing it with the admittedly and intentionally ridiculous nom de plume of Wally Lumbago. Looking back, I'm amazed I did it. I'm amazed that I did it. I was in no position to jeopardize my working relationship with Marvel or with any publisher. I had a career to build, a new family to support, but I simply couldn't put my name on a story dedicated to my own son that now meant exactly the opposite of what I intended.
So what was does he talk about how did his book end?
And this is quoting DeMatteis again.
Yeah.
They weren't happy. Why? It seemed that, to them, the very idea that a character in the Star Wars universe would voice an opinion that in any way contradicted the Skywalker worldview was offensive. The word came down that Sunchild, in rejecting violence, made their characters look bad. In other words, their universe wasn't big enough to contain one single person with a point of view that suggested that non-violence was a reasonable alternative to war. So much, and he says in parentheticals there, so much for my follow-up story about Princess Leia traveling through time to meet Martin Luther King and Gandhi.
Very good.
So the idea is that DeMatteis's original, he doesn't say exactly how his issue actually ended, but he wanted it to stand as Sunchild being a legitimate point of view in this conflict.
Which I agree. Once again, it's I don't disagree with DeMatteis's worldview, right? Like, I the problem is it's Star Wars, right? That is the thing about it, and also the idea that you would take a stand to have your name taken off of a thing. Fine, that's his right to do it, but it is just this idea about like you knew going in this was not only you're working for Marvel, you're working for Marvel, which is licensing from another thing. So the idea being like, how dare you? Well, this isn't your world anyway. It's an interest, but also Lucas. That's a talk about being hyperbolic. That is a really extreme reaction to the Lucasfilms thing because I could see how I can see how they would read this as like, yeah, we don't want Cody Sunchild to be morally superior to our heroes, and it's very easy to read it as that, right? Where it's just like, oh, this guy's better than everybody, and well, as we talk about, this idea of nonviolence in the face of war is valid if you're not literally fighting a war against evil, like elemental evil.
Yeah, no. In a complex sociopolitical environment in which it can't be said any side has the like moral justification to do what they need to be victorious, then yes, choosing to stand aside from the conflict is one thing. But when you're fighting fucking Nazis,
yeah, no, because it's like that, yeah, because if you glom that onto like World War II, right, like. Yeah, then I can't get on board, right? Because it is like the context and circumstances do matter.
And to be clear, there were absolutely peace movements in World War II.
Of course there were.
But a lot of those circled around this idea that the like larger political and state-based entities were pushing the working man against each other, and those kind of like communist revolutions that had struck Russia prior to the war would then spread to the rest of the world, and like that's where we get the Red Scare and like look, go read a history book.
Well, there's once again the world is very complex, but yes, the idea of like if you're in France and the Nazis are taking over and you're just like, hey man, why don't we all just get along? It's a little tough to be on the side of that person.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's
I can
understand where Lucasfilm is coming from.
Totally, because it's not just like you're talking about. They did tell stories like that, and actually the Clone Wars is a much better place to talk about that because that is not the elemental battle against the Empire. The Clone Wars is more complicated, and why actually, yeah, as we talk about, a lot of the allegories work better in the prequel era because it is it is more about the center of it has the power, which is the America stand-in of the Republic.
Right. But that being corrupted by the people who are pulling the strings from the background. And how none of it is serving a greater good.
And there's interesting stories to be told, and we're seeing that now, to be told after, where it's like, okay, now you've won. That's why I really want more stories set in that 30-year gap, where it is like, okay, you've defeated the evil. What do you do now? You've got to actually run the place. That's also fascinating. This is he doesn't know it because Star Wars only exists at this point, but it's like DeMatteis has chosen the worst place in the Star Wars timeline to tell this story.
And like, could a figure like Cody Sunchild exist in a different time period in Star Wars? Yes, and they've already done it. It's the father, the son, and the daughter in the Clone Wars as well. Those like weird force entities that exist outside of the universe. It's almost exactly this story. They go to another dimension. Yes. They find out about this removal of conflict that they have, and there are these forces that corrupt and imbalance the whole thing, and our characters have to come to terms with all that stuff.
Yeah. And I swear we'll get to, because I do want to talk about the very end of this issue that does exist. But the other thing I think in DeMatteis's defense is these are all good themes. Maybe a 22-page issue of a comic book isn't enough to explore them as well. That's another thing too, right? Is like this, if this had been a 6-issue arc, maybe, and you could have really had Lando spend time there, and you could have been more development of the characters, you might have been able to pull off more of this stuff. But it does come off. It forces these very complex ideas to be simplified, and so that's where I do feel like he was kind of doomed from the start. And that's where, because this is a guy I forgot, of course. His greatest contribution to comics probably being Kraven's Last Hunt, which is one of the best Spider-Man stories ever, right? Like, I mean, you bring up any great list of superhero stories. So DeMatteis, and he's just starting out, of course, at this time too, but like is a really fantastic writer with and brought levels of depth to Craven in that you know. So, but it just like he might have been a little ahead of his time, is I guess what I'm saying. This may have just been the wrong time and place for this. Anyway, let's talk about what actually does happen. Number one, Lando crying. Did that feel like way too much to you?
Already dropped the last page. Here. Yeah, no, and this feels like a holdover from whatever DeMatteis had originally planned of just like the cynical character weeping over the peaceful man's death, right?
Because it is sort of a thing about like, okay, you knew who he was, then talked to him for a couple hours, and now you're like, he's gone. That beautiful man is gone. And then, as we talked about, also the idea that the Empire is stranded there, and then I thought really. No, we don't know Captain Plick as a character at all, but that she's going, no, come back and kill us. You can't deny us the glory of death. That's a weird, once again, that feels like a Klingon thing. Like, I don't know, what do you...
Yeah, that's channeling some, like, weird Reichstag, like, again, Nazi, like...
literal Nazis, not Empire
yeah.
stand-ins for...
Right, no, because...
The
Nazis had this whole like glorious death to find your way to Valhalla,
yep.
like weird twisting of
and actually
like,
also
Viking mentality
in the Pacific as well, right? Where it's like literally the Japanese would fight until they were killed, right? And it's
wow. And look, we can go into Imperial Japan all day long as
that's
well.
That's a whole other thing.
A whole other wild ideology.
I've never gotten that sense from the Empire at large in Star Wars. That the glory of death.
From time to time.
But it feels like it's a more an individual character. And this character weirdly just is nothing anyway. And also, you're still gonna die out there. Like these people are just gonna die. Like I said, it is sort of an interesting moment of like the non-violence of just letting them starve to death or whatever.
They're on fucking Star Destroyers. Those things are self-sufficient. They can go forever. They're basically cities.
Okay, then fine. But they're still like by exile. I don't know. It still feels like a pretty awful fate for them.
Yeah, and look, they just fixed their hyperdrives. They'll be back. It's fine. We won't see the last of Plick.
Will we not, Gorgoni?
No, she was never seen again.
No, of course not. Yeah, because once again, what is there to... There's nothing interesting about her at all. She is only here for DeMatteis to make his point.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we will see her again in the early 90s reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Yeah, she did get more work after this. Oh, boy. Well, and then, of course, Fini ends it.
Fini. That killed me.
Boy, you want to talk about being pretentious. This strikes me. It makes sense. This is very early in his career because this does strike me. And it even kind of seems like him saying that where he goes, I can't believe I took a stance on this like that, right? Where you're going like, at this early in my career. It really does strike me as a guy who's new and, you know, comics are changing. He's like, hey, man, fuck you, corporate overlords. I'll tell you what this is about. It's about peace and love. And you just want to make a story about violence.
And look, at the end of the blog post, DeMatteis says, to her credit, Louise totally understood my position, and no one at Marvel ever gave me any grief about it. In fact, not long afterward, I signed an exclusive writing contract with the company, so clearly no harm was done.
Well, because it really...
Of course, I never wrote another Star Wars story, but I really didn't mind.
Because it really... Yeah. And also, I will say, based on this, it's a thing where I don't think anybody's wrong. You know what I mean? Lucasfilm is not wrong. Yeah. DeMatteis is not wrong. And maybe it is like for the best he didn't, because it's like, maybe you just don't fit Star Wars, man. Maybe that's the lesson here is like, but it is sort of a thing where, yeah, Marvel's not mad at him because it really is, but they are working for Lucasfilm. If they piss them off, they'll take the license somewhere else. They don't want to lose that. I get it. Art and commerce, man. It's the eternal story.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's just this issue. This is maybe going to be clocking in at one of our longest episodes we've ever done.
Because it's a fascinating one.
Because it's a fascinating one. There's a lot.
Most of these aren't interesting, folks.
I think this particular issue is like really what we're talking about when we say like looking at this as like an artifact of history,
Oh, yeah.
right? And the weird cross-section of commerce and art that Star Wars specifically has created over the last 30 years, of how those things come into conflict with each other, the friction those things create, and sometimes that friction can create really incredible stories in this universe that has become so universally beloved and known. And sometimes it can create schlock.
Well, and I think what's interesting about this is this also, as we talked about, it's interesting that this is the first time they really pushed back on it, because we let this other stuff go. But I think this does speak to post-Empire. Lucasfilm is now thinking, ooh, this doesn't fit Star Wars. I think they are also stronger in knowing what their brand needs. Because a lot of that documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special is like, this is kind of the only time this would have happened. They weren't going to let that happen post-Empire, but nobody really knew what Star Wars was. The concept of having an intellectual property-based franchise wasn't really in the air. So weird stuff came out, and people talk about the post-Star Wars, pre-Empire era of Star Wars is the weirdest time for Star Wars. Because
that's the Wild West.
Yeah, nobody really knows what it is, and nobody's ever done anything like it. Like the idea, once again, the idea about like we got to keep a brand for this product, for this movie is not a thing. So yeah, I think that shows you the difference in the mindset of Lucasfilm at this point too.
The statement that DeMatteis makes in his blog about how a character couldn't have a conflicting morality to Skywalker specifically speaks to how they're understanding their own brand mechanics at this point. And I find that very interesting.
Yeah, totally. Well, next week it's some droid nonsense.
Next week is a fucking droids issue.
I know, it does speak to also just, once again, the thing we also got to keep in mind is, as we've talked about, is just like they just got to put out a book every month too. So
that's the thing. That's what's
great about this.
Next week, it's all the same people we know and love, and they're writing a story and they're about doing 3PO and R2.
Droid goofiness. But of course, if you want more from us, you can head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.podbean.com/punchup. Once again, that's patreon.podbean.com/punchup for cool exclusive bonus content, as well as helping out the show with your support. It's greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to support this show in particular is to go follow us over on YouTube. It's the best way to watch this show because you can read the comic along with us as we show off all the insane goofiness.
Yeah, this one's definitely really worth checking out. Even if you just listen to this, you should come over to YouTube to see some of these images because, wow.
Yeah, youtube.com/punchupentertainment. While you're there, please like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications every time a new episode drops.
Indeed.
We really appreciate it. In the comments below, let us know. I was about to say, what's your stance on peaceful resolution to morally complex geopolitical situations? No, just why don't you just give us a big thumbs up emoji? How about that?
That'll tell us you just say you liked it. Just say we done good. But I think that's going to do it, Gergani.
Yes, indeed. That will do it for this week. I, of course, have been Mike Gergoni.
I'm John Campbell.
And remember, may the panel be with you.